I'm a doctor. I look after sick people in hospital. But I often wonder about the person beyond the patient. What their life is like at home. How they feel about their illness outside of the clinical setting that I usually see them in. And how their loved ones cope with having a very sick person in the family. In this series, you'll meet a young brother and sister, one of whom has cystic fibrosis, an older couple, one with dementia, and a middle-aged couple where one has cancer.
Would you like some tea or coffee? Because I'll make some for Sebi as well.
Yeah, I'll have a cup of tea. Small.
Tea? All right. And what do you want for lunch? There's the meatballs or the biryani?
Yeah, the biryani. I'll have a little bit of the biryani.
I'll get that ready.
Like that.
Okay.
The truth is that a lot of my patients die. I'm an oncologist and I know that cancer is a cruel disease. Desiree Lobo was diagnosed with ovarian cancer early in 2016. Together with her husband Leslie and children Sean and Shannon, she faced what quickly became a very aggressive cancer.
We had gone camping, and when we came back, I started to feel ill and feverish, and that's how it all started.
Leslie, what do you remember about that time of diagnosis?
We were expecting something, but not cancer as such. But when they did tell us it was cancer, I don't know, it was like I switched off at that time and tried to process it.
So that night that we got the news saying that it's cancer, ovarian cancer, I can't really pinpoint exactly how I felt because it was a whole lot of mixed emotions because Leslie was there, Shannon, my daughter, was there, and the doctor asked for my son, is your son here? I need to let everyone know something and, give you all the news and stuff like that. So I knew it was something bad. Excuse me. So to process that, it was like too quick. Everything was too quick.
I think when they told her that, we came back home, we said, well, we've got cancer. Now what do? Let's get the show on the road and get your surgery.
A total hysterectomy as well as I'm not sure what, the stomach lining had to be removed as well. 6 weeks after recovery, then I would have to start chemo. And it would be aggressive chemo because it's an aggressive cancer. And I hadn't even thought of alternative therapy at the time. So I just had the surgery and I was already set to start with chemotherapy. And 2 days before I could start, I had a friend who said that it's up to you. It's an alternative therapy. Would you like to, think about it?
This friend, did she have experiences herself or did her family have experiences? And what was she basing her advice to you on? And also, was she a close friend of yours?
He's a close friend of the family. And yes, he definitely knows people who are close, who have recovered. I wouldn't say cured because that's, can't say the word cured, but recovered from cancer with alternative treatment.
And the good thing about her is she's very strong. Strong, I won't say stubborn, though at times she is. Especially when I try to give her food and, give her an extra sachet of oats in the morning, which she refuses. She's very strong in terms of opinion, and it's not irrational, it's very rational. And when she chose to do the treatment that she wanted to, I supported her 100%.
The reason was because I know people in my family or my extended family or my in-laws who have been through chemo and have not recovered from cancer.
And it's not a dignified way to live, because it still restricts you from doing what you normally do, especially something that's so aggressive. And this at least accorded her the quality of life, the dignity of having that choice and making that decision, and still looking as beautiful as she does without the chemicals going into her body and everything else. Nothing's a sure short fix. So what do? Well, you take a chance. You do something that you want to go for, believe in it, and then we all supported her.
So take me through the conversation that happened when you told the oncologists that you were not going to have chemotherapy, because I'm sure it would have been uncomfortable.
Yes, it was. It was uncomfortable.
I don't think you never told them that you didn't want to. You just postponed every time they gave you a slot.
Correct.
And Desiree and Leslie Lobo's story continues in the next episode of An Illness in the Family. I'm Dr. Ranjana Srivastava, and I'm taking you now to meet two siblings.
Now that I've finished exams, I can actually swim with you now. I can actually go on the pool.
Can you come in today?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Sophie Ryan is 16 years old. Her brother Harry is 12.
Next week, I have 4 shifts of work.
When?
So, do you want me to bring you home Macca's on Saturday?
Yes, please.
Harry has cystic fibrosis, CF.
Well, what I think cystic fibrosis is a lung condition, and it means that the mucus in my body gets stuck, and it also has something to do with my weight and how I need to take digestive tablets in order to put on weight.
And how long have you had CF?
I was diagnosed at birth, so my entire life.
Tell us a little bit about how CF affects your day-to-day life, Harry.
Well, when I was younger, it used to make me feel a bit different. So if I had to get pulled out of class to do like a needle or something, I would hate it. But it depends really, because some things I still hate right now, hate doing. So if I didn't have CF, I'd probably get an hour back in my day. Usually what happens is I wake up in the morning, I get ready, and then I do my physio, which I do by myself, but sometimes mum or dad are in there making sure I'm doing it properly. And then after brekkie, I'll have all my tablets and do my tobramycin, which is another thing, like on an inhaler that I have to do. And then at night, it's basically the same thing. I do another thing on an inhaler called pulmazine, and then I also take tablets after dinner, and I also have to take enzymes, which are tablets, every time before I eat.
Sophie, tell me a little bit about how you understand Harry's CF. Did your mum and dad sit down with you and ever have sort of a conversation about CF?
I was only 4 when Harry was born, so I don't really remember anything before he was born. So it was just sort of a thing that we grew up with. The only thing that they ever sort of spoke to me about was when he was really, really young, and I just remember mum and dad being like, because I was old enough to sort of understand, but he wasn't, and they sort of just said to me, look, he doesn't know it's not normal that he goes into hospital and he has to deal with all this stuff, so just don't mention it to him. He doesn't know what he has. That was the only time when they ever sort of had to sit down and explain something to me. Other than that, it was just sort of growing up, just taking a new step each time something new happened.
So how much of a role do you play in reminding Harry about his meds and to do things on time? Do you have to help him do his physio, etc.?
Well, because I'm in high school now, I'm usually out of the house before Harry's awake, so he sleeps in. And so not so much now, but I remember when I was younger, we'd go to the same school, so we'd leave at the same time, and I used to have to sometimes help in the morning, which I hated, because mum and dad would make me turn the TV off and sit there and count with him how many physio breaths he did, and I hated that. I was so bored. So that was more of when I helped him. And so much at night. He's so good with it now, like he knows how to do it all himself, so I don't really play that much of a part in that.
So most kids can hardly get up to get themselves to school and get ready and have breakfast. So how do you manage to fit all this in? Do you have to set an alarm?
Well, there's these really important tablets I have to take. And what we did was the nurse gave us an idea that we set an alarm at 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the night, and that will remind us. So, yeah, there is an alarm, and then half the other stuff, well, I know I have to do it every morning anyway, so, yeah.
Is it hard?
Well, I make it out to be. I don't really like doing it, but it's actually, if I just do it quickly, I can get it over and done with. It depends, because I have some things that I really hate doing, which are hard for me. I have a tube in my stomach which runs extra calories through me each night, and it's quite hard to sleep with sometimes. Like, I have to roll around with a cord connected to me, and also I have to get it changed every 6 months, and that's my least favourite thing about CF. It hurts and I get anxiety before I do it, and yeah.
"12-year-old Harry Ryan and his sister Sophie. Their story continues next time in this series about an illness in the family.
When are you going to go and get the rest of the leaves out of the garden that have all been blowing in?
I'm just looking at it out there, and the hedge out there needs a barbecue. It's
A barbecue?
It's got to be trimmed.
Yes, yes.
It's got to be trimmed down and make it look beautiful, getting a little bit overrun.
Patricia and Edwin Rabe have been married 53 years and have 3 grown-up children.
Yes. When are you playing bowls next?
Monday.
Monday?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So that'll keep me occupied for...
The morning?
The morning, yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay.
In 2012, Pat got a diagnosis we all know something about and dread: dementia.
I think I know everything about it. I don't like dementia. It affects me remembering things, but I'm with it a lot of the time too, aren't I?
Some of the time, yeah.
Oh, sort of. And also affects me being spaced out and not knowing anything for 12 hours or something, and that freaks me out. I don't know who I am. And I don't know how long ago I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
4 years.
4 years.
The days sort of don't mean very much. She comes out every day. What day is it? 5 minutes later she'd say, what's today? The memory is just non-existent for those sorts of things.
Yes, so I'm not very partial to it.
Pat's mother died with dementia, not because of it. So the good part about it is that Pat knows exactly what's happening. And a lot of people don't and will not accept it. But she knows what's happening. Unfortunately, there's no cure. Like everything that'll come up, like we get literature from Alzheimer's Australia, and they say, well, we've got this new product, but the trouble is it's 10 or 15 years down the track, it's going to be no value to us. But she started off, she used to go out with her girlfriends for lunch once a month. But then she'd come up to pay the bill and wouldn't know how much money she had to pass over. Just little things like that.
Tell me a little bit about what it was like to have the diagnosis of dementia confirmed by the specialist for both of you.
I was upset, but I knew there was something wrong, and I just had to put up with it. But I've got a terrible fear of going to a nursing home. It's very frightening, and it haunts me.
The thing about the nursing home is that when Pat's mum went into it, it was not a very good one in those days. And you used to go there and all the ladies are sitting on potty chairs with no pants on and all this sort of stuff. And that's what Pat doesn't want to happen.
Can you think back to the time that you were told that Pat had dementia and what went through your mind?
Well, it was a bit of a shock, but looking back on it, I could see so many things that were not right. Like we were going along in the car and Pat said Dr. Miller had a kangaroo in the surgery. Things out of the blue just didn't make any sense at all. And, it's just something that I've got to try and live with. And since that has happened, I've been to things that the council have run, teaching carers how to look after their partners and things like that.
Pat, I've called you a couple of times to arrange for us to meet, and you have been very articulate on the phone. You have understood what I'm asking. You have been able to speak with Ed and relay that information correctly. When I look at you, you look well and beautiful, and yet it's somehow hard to believe that your memory has fallen so far. I wonder what's that like for you to experience on a daily basis?
I feel I can remember past things and I've still got enough in me so that I haven't got to go to that level of care. And, I can't bear the thought of going to that stage myself.
Well, it's something you get used to, You've got to live with these sorts of problems that Paddy's got, Like she had to hand in her car licence, like she can't drive a car anymore.
I didn't know the road rules anymore.
She's been taken off the electoral roll and things like that. But apart from that, it's quite manageable at the moment. It's reasonable.
I was going to say something, it's gone. Oh, no, it's gone. It might come back.
Patricia Rabe and her husband Edwin, together working out how to manage Pat's dementia. I'm Dr. Ranjana Srivastava, and in this series, I'm stepping out of my normal role as a hospital oncologist. I'm speaking with 3 people who each has a serious illness, along with their closest relatives, to find out how illness affects all of them and how it impacts on their relationship. Desiree Lobo was diagnosed with ovarian cancer early in 2016. With her husband Leslie, she decided not to have chemotherapy, even though they knew her cancer was aggressive.
I chose to do different therapies rather than just go one therapy. So I did juicing, carrot juice, and kale.
Celery, kale, carrot, pomegranate,
Basically
orange juice.
Vegetable juices. I did the coffee enema. I did the black salve. It's a paste which I make up the capsules with. I also did the Rife frequency treatment.
Basically vibrations that make your body receptive to whatever she was doing, and if the body is in a good place, then the treatment works.
So now you have had these natural therapies for a few months, and then you come into hospital again.
That morning I wasn't there, but the doctors came and had a word with her and said, look, we've told you many times, you need to do chemotherapy, but you chose whatever you do, and we respect that. But the fact is now that we've come to a stage where we can't treat you, A, because your body's too weak, B, the cancer spread really much. Your body will not be in a position to handle the chemotherapy, and so that's not an option. We give you an estimated life of between 2 weeks and 2 months. And that's it.
How did you feel when you were given the news that it was too late to give you chemotherapy And it sounds like you were in a very frail position at the time. I think you couldn't get out of bed. Your legs were very swollen. You were having trouble walking. So what was it like hearing all this bad news now?
I think by nature, I am just not a negative person. So I never think that, it's the end or the beginning of the end. So for me, it was seriously, you saying that, I'm going to die within 2 weeks to 2 months. And straight away, my brain shut down. It can't be happening. This cannot happen. So it was just a matter of my willpower. And I said, I'm not just going to give in to it just because someone tells me that I've got 2 months to live. And I'm not going to do things, I'll just give you a small example. One of my daughter's friends, she came up to me and just think about it, she says. Can you write a letter or a few letters to Shannon and Sean for Shannon's 21st birthday? You're not going to be around. And all the milestones, different milestones for both of them. And I was just taken aback. I was like, why would I do that? And she's saying, well, the reality is, I said, I don't know what the reality of the future is. Right now, yes, I know what I'm going through. I know the suffering I'm going through. I said, but if I start writing letters, in my mind, I'm telling myself, yes, I'm going in 2 months. And I said, I don't mean to be rude or anything like that. It's a very nice. She's saying, I'll help you with the letters if you are too tired. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be there for my daughter's 21st.
Yeah, and I think the positive stance that she takes and has taken, we fed off that positivity. Both Sean, Shannon, myself, we're positive, There is no other alternative but that.
It's quite obvious that you are both positive people. I wonder whether in your private moments there is ever any remorse or anger about what has gone on and the alternative treatments or the treatment through the medical system sometimes. What do you think?
I did go through that phase, but that was a while ago. Not anymore. I don't have any regrets. Basically, I don't judge any therapist. I don't judge any doctor. I don't judge anybody who's treated me.
As Desiree Lobo and her husband Leslie accept the consequences of the choices they've made for treating her cancer, Patricia and Edwin Rabe are making adjustments to their lives as Pat's dementia takes hold.
I'm safe at home, but if we have visitors, I'm likely not to remember, although Ed said I'm normal with them.
Carries on quite normally and chats away with all the girls. That's not a problem. But next day, zero. Just doesn't remember anything. Like today, she can't remember that she did all the ironing yesterday.
So are there times when you forget to turn the iron off?
A couple of times, and I try and think what has to happen. I don't cook, thank goodness, or goodness only knows what he'll get to eat.
Well, I'm a better cook than what she is, so we have better food now. But no, Pat, being a working girl, she used to come home meat and 3 veg. That was about all it was, But now I'm home all the time, so we get a lot better stuff. But I do the shopping and I do the cooking.
Sometimes when you are looking after someone who has dementia, you have to be careful about things like making sure that the doors are locked. How much of that do you have to do now?
You better tell her the tale.
There was one time she got up in the middle of the night and went for a walk, and we had ice cream in the freezer, and the upshot of it was that she finished up at the back garden and she'd fallen over and cracked her head, and so we brought her inside, and I found bowls of ice cream with chocolate sauce on them everywhere, even in the back seat of the car. So that was the first of those things, and we got over that one, and then just a while ago, must have been probably 6 months ago, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I had a knock on the door, and it was our neighbour across the road. Pat had got up and walked over there in a 90. But that's just two isolated cases. But by the same token, it was suggested I put locks on the outside doors.
You've got locks there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Did those episodes scare you?
I was embarrassed. I had an old daggy nightie on instead of a lovely nightie. I couldn't even... Oh, I was so embarrassed. God. They had to wrap me up in a rug. I hate it when I don't remember. I'm frightened of saying the wrong thing. I've always been with it, haven't I?
Yep.
And say the right thing. I worked for a medico-legal psychiatrist for 21 years, and that was working with psychiatry, so I try very hard.
So, Ed, I'm interested in knowing whether you have been ill in the last 4 years and you have needed care, and who has provided that care.
Well, we're lucky that we've got a daughter, a very bossy young lady, and she tends to look after us very well. I've had medical things, and the 2 knee replacement, our daughter, Sky, managed to come here and look after Pat while I was in hospital.
She looked after me like a mother hen, didn't she? I was terrible. I didn't know my own home. I thought we were in someone else's home, didn't I? I didn't know where I was. But she looked after me. I mean, Ed always looks after me too.
Ed, tell me what your average day is like.
The average day, mostly just doing chores around the house.
Ed goes to happy hour and he plays bowls. I don't join in anything anymore here. I stay home.
We've got our own bowling green down here, so we'll go down and talk to the ladies again.
He likes the ladies. I like him to go out and mix. I don't go out anymore. I'll go over to the shopping centre with you, won't I? And I'll go to the family, which we don't see very often.
And are there times when Ed goes out and you are home by yourself? And how does that feel?
I'm good. I go in my chair and I love television. I really relate to television. So I get in my chair over there and put that telly on, and it's fine. I stay there until he gets back.
You're listening to An Illness in the Family. I'm Dr. Ranjana Srivastava. Sophie Ryan was 4 when her brother Harry was born. He was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, CF. And all his life, he's now 12, he's had to go into hospital for a couple of weeks at a time for regular tune-ups. This involves respiratory therapy and intravenous antibiotics.
So when I was younger, it used to be every 3 months, and I would have to go in for 14 days. What used to happen then is a bit different to what happens now. So I used to go in, they used to put me under anaesthetic. Well, first I had to fast for a long time, which was terrible. And they put me under anaesthetic. I would go to sleep. They would put the line in. And then when I woke up, I'd be really sick. The first day was kind of terrible always. Getting the medicines run. I'd have to bring in lots of toys and all that just to keep me amused because I'd be there for 2 weeks. And now, as I got older, they stopped doing the anaesthetic and we started just to do it while I was awake, and they would just put numbing cream on it and then stick the needle in, which I do really hate, but it's better than being sick after the operation. And then the tune-up started getting less time in hospital because we started doing something called HIT, which stands for Hospital in the Home. The physios would come to school to help do my physio. So another thing I forgot to mention is when I go into hospital, they do physio twice a day, every day. The hospital physios come in and help me just to refresh my technique every time I do a tune-up.
Sophie, I want to ask you a little bit about how your parents cope with all of this.
I think my parents are amazing, and I think they do so much to help Harry and make sure that he's, has a normal life as he can. And I just have this memory of one time Dad was talking to me and we were walking through the hospital, and I said, Dad, is it hard, having to deal with all this? And he said, it sucks. And I hate having to bring Harry in. I hate having him to go through all this and stuff. Yeah. It's also very hard on them, and I see it. That's why I try to do my best to entertain Harry and make sure he just feels like a normal kid, because he is. Yeah.
Sophie, whenever there's an ill child in the family, other children feel that perhaps that child gets special treatment. Do you think that's happened in your family?
The sort of thing that kind of annoys me is because when I was in primary school, I never had days off. My mum's a teacher, so, it's like go to school, go to school, go to school. So I had to be really sick to have a day off. And then, every second day, Harry's like, oh, you feeling a bit sick? You can stay home. You can stay home. I was like, really? No, but it's more of a bit of a red light when Harry gets sick, because he can get quite sick a little bit easier than me. So, he definitely has more days off than me and stuff like that. But one of the biggest things is definitely the eating, because Harry, having CF, he has to have a high-fat, high-sugar diet, I think, or something like that. Mum used to try and force-feed him ice cream and chocolate and be like, eat, eat, eat. But all he'd want to eat was fruit. And then all I'd want to eat was ice cream and chocolate, and Mum would be like, you've got to eat more fruit. So that was the worst thing in the world. And then also, because I'm older, I try to eat healthy and stuff. But then the problem is, with Harry, we have to have fatty stuff in the house instead of just being in another household. Because me, Mum and Dad, we try to eat healthy and stuff. So, if it wasn't for Harry, we probably wouldn't have as much of it in the house. So that's a big thing, yeah.
The worst thing about Sophie is that she's always doing homework or something, which I don't think is her fault, but half the time it'll be boiling, and I'll be like, hey, can we go out for a swim? And then she'll be like, no, sorry, I have to study. But the best thing about Sophie is that even when we argue, we don't hold a grudge and then not talk to each other for 2 weeks. It's just we argue, and then later on that night we'll say, all right, sorry for what I did before, and then we'll be fine. She doesn't say, oh, well, I'm mad at you. She kind of just goes, yeah, okay, that's fine. Just try and be a bit more nice next time or something like that. Yeah.
The best thing about Harry is he's completely ridiculous, so he makes me laugh so much. He just does ridiculous things, and it just cracks me up. Does funny voices and stuff. It just makes you laugh all the time.
"16-year-old Sophie Ryan and her brother Harry, who is 12 and has cystic fibrosis. More from them, along with married couples Leslie and Desiree Lobo and Edwin and Patricia Rabe, in the next and final episode of An Illness in the Family, when they turn their attention to the future. I'm Ranjana Srivastava, and as a doctor based in a hospital, under normal circumstances, I don't make house calls. But in this series, I'm visiting 3 sick people in their homes to talk with them and their partner or close relative about the contours of their lives. This final episode is all about the future. First of all, for Ed and Pat Rabe. Pat has been living with dementia for 4 years.
The future. All I can see is that it's not going to get any better with me. I'm going to get worse. It's something I'm finding very hard to cope with because it keeps coming.
Pat knows what's on the cards.
I don't see that when I do go mental as anything, when it gets bad, I want to do something. So I joined Exit. So I managed to store a pile of tablets at one time, which I knew would work. But of course they were too old then, so I thought, what's the use of storing tablets if they reach their use-by date? And then I can't just take tablets and leave Ed just like that.
And Ed, how do you feel about the whole voluntary euthanasia or physician-assisted death debate?
Well, I'm all for it, really. Seeing how Pat is sort of going down and knowing how her mother died with it, and she was just virtually a vegetable when she went, didn't know anybody. And I know Pat doesn't want to finish up like that. So we're thinking about it. We haven't made any concrete decision about things like that, but we can see the writing on the wall.
Our children don't agree with it. I told them that I'd joined Exit and they weren't happy about it, were they? They don't like anything to do with that or me doing anything. But I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just can't cope with the thought of going into a nursing home.
Ed, I wanted to ask you, so if you both decided to go through with euthanasia, it would really be your decision because Pat is not, does not have capacity to consent.
You can't do that. If you do that, that's murder. We've talked about it, and it would be up to Pat if she got to the stage that she wanted to finish it.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but do you have an advance care directive?
No, that's what I said to you, we've got to get. Somebody said to me.
No, we were at the last Exit meeting. Most of the people there, all of them pretty well had this medical directive thing. So we thought, well, we better do it too.
You get the form at the post office or somewhere, do you?
You can get it through your local doctor or through your local hospital.
I've been saying that, haven't I, to you? We've got to do a medical directive.
Yeah.
Pat, you seem to have had a very independent and sort of a very high-functioning life. You had professional jobs, etc. So what does it feel like being cared for and being dependent on Ed?
I feel terribly sorry for Ed. Very, very sorry for Ed. And I hate being the way I am. Hate it. Hate it.
And Ed, how do you sound like a very calm person, but you must have days where it's frustrating or upsetting. How do you manage?
Actually, it hasn't proved to be all that bad. Pat's still feisty enough to have an argument if she wants to, but
we still love each other anyway. He's so patient. He's very patient. And I drive him nuts at times, and sometimes he'll get really cross, won't you, occasionally? And you go, bang, I just go to bed.
How long have you been married, Ed?
100 years. 53.
But 9 out of 10.
That's all I want. I am 9 out of 10.
You know, you're 10 out of 10, but 9, no. Oh, I've lost the hang of it. But I forget things all the time. That sometimes makes you cross with me, doesn't it? I, I can't think of what it was I said to you the other day, and he goes, raises the eyebrows, you know. I said, oh, God.
But we know the problem is there, and we know that eventually it's going to turn all belly up and not be nice. But at the present moment, things are going along okay.
I still get a hug and kiss every night.
Pat and Ed Rabe, with a love that's bolstered by immense patience in the face of the unknown. Harry Ryan and his big sister Sophie have pretty much the typical sort of relationship you'd expect 12 and 16-year-old siblings to have. Except that Harry has cystic fibrosis, CF. Not that he intends that's going to stop him in life.
What I want to do when I grow up is, first of all, I want to be an AFL player. But if not, the things I'm interested in are either sports journalism, AFL, basketball, whatever, or I want to be a physiotherapist, which is another thing, because I see a lot of physiotherapists not just to do with CF. Like, I'm a 12-year-old boy who loves sports, so I have to go to like physios about my feet, all that. So yeah, that's another thing I'm interested in.
Sophie, whenever there's an ill sibling in the family, the other siblings sometimes worry about whether they could become sick or their lives might be similarly affected. Do you worry about that for yourself?
The only thing that I worry about, because I understand it's a genetic issue, so obviously, I want to have a family when I'm older. And it worries me is because I don't know if I have the gene. So will I have a kid with CF? But I think growing up with Harry, I think it would help if it did happen, because I feel like I would already know a bit about what life's like.
Have you had a chat with your parents then about whether you will be tested at some stage?
When I was in year 7 or something, I think because a girl that I'm really good friends with CF has an auntie, and she said to me once, we might have the gene, so we could possibly pass it on to our kids. And I came home and I was like, Mum, what does this mean? And she's like, yeah, look, it's a possibility that you could have the gene, and you can get tested when you're older. And I think about it sometimes, like, would I want to be tested, to find out? And I don't know. I think I would. I think I'd like to know, just in case. Yeah.
Harry, you said before that you would love to be an AFL player. What does it take to be a top footy player, do you think?
Well, a thing that I know I need to work on is my eating. I'm a very picky eater. Like, if Mum gives me a big meal, I might not finish it all, which is definitely a thing I should work on, because if I need to be a footy player, I need to have a lot of muscles. Also, my athleticism, so like my endurance, like sometimes I'll just sit inside like for a whole week, and then when it comes to footy on Sunday, I won't be able to run out the whole game, and then I'll be wondering why. So 2 things, like major things I need to work on, like endurance and like muscle, I reckon.
Given the fact that you are more prone to illness and you have tubes that can get tangled and people have to be careful around you, do your parents or Sophie ever discourage you from playing football and say that maybe you should do something that's a little bit safer?
Well, they might like to, but they don't want to discourage me, because they know how much I love it, and if they said no, then it would be sad for me. But I reckon they do the opposite, because Dad was actually my footy coach last year. He won us the premiership as a coach. And so I think they don't discourage me, they encourage me, but they also remind me to be safe.
What advice would you give to someone who is diagnosed with a chronic illness, CF or something else?
One thing is to not worry about your treatments or things too much, to just get it done without moaning about it, because that's the thing. Half the time I'll be and not want to do it, whereas I still have to do it eventually. Another thing is to try and not make yourself feel different. Just try and act like you're a normal kid with an illness, I guess. So don't be oh, I'm not normal. Just think that it's just an illness. Just because you have to go into hospital doesn't mean you're not like your best friend. So just to try and not worry too much, I guess, and think about the positives rather than the negatives.
Husband and wife Leslie and Desiree Lobo are also thinking about the positives, even though Desiree is now in the advanced stages of ovarian cancer.
My day is really one day is not very different to the other, almost the same. During the day, it's really good. I like this part of the day. The evenings are not so good, because then I start to feel uncomfortable and bloated in my stomach, and then the fever comes on in the evenings. So basically I'm not really very active, but I do just the basics I do for myself.
Are you afraid of dying?
I was waiting for you to come to this question. I'm not afraid of dying at all. I used to be afraid of dying, but there was something that came over me that I'm not afraid of dying anymore. But also not looking forward to dying. I love life as much as I'm not afraid of death. I still love life. I want life. So in your mind, you have to be really strong and positive, defeat this illness, not give in to the illness.
Has anyone ever said or implied to you that you may be in denial?
I haven't had anyone tell me that yet, that I'm in denial. I'm sure a lot of people think it, even when they come and meet me, and they, sometimes you can tell by their expressions and oh, very good, that's very good to have a positive attitude, but you can tell in their minds they're saying but be realistic as well, don't get carried away kind of thing. Yeah. But that's for that person to think. She's not me.
It's not the destination, it's the journey. So if every day can be a good day, a happy day, a day that you can get by, and that's it. But then there's a dose of reality as well. So there is the realistic side. Yes, there are parts failing. It's growing or it's getting worse. But you know what? I'm going to enjoy my life till that very end.
Leslie, I'd like to hear from you about how you have modified your work and what your days and nights are like.
When she did take bad, I gave up my job and I said I'll be with her in sickness and in health till a very long time from now, till death do us part. I'm with her all the time, so it's a different life compared to the corporate life. But just being with her and investing this time, being able to handle this, I think we do it together.
I can see how invested you are both in each other. Tell me a little bit about how your relationship has changed over the course of Desiree's illness.
It hasn't changed, It hasn't changed. We were on a good wicket. We celebrated our 25th anniversary.
If it has changed, it's changed for the positive, because I think he is very, very, very much more attentive to details. Whereas, there were things.
Like, don't put too much salt. There's too much salt in that.
And we are so much more sensitive to each other's needs now. And, even I feel sometimes that I overwork him, so he needs his rest. Doing what he's doing now is a 24/7 job.
Yeah, well, that's life, We feel, and we've been through so much together in our lives that we've come to a stage where we're very much in sync with our thoughts. We talk very little now, but of course, I listen. I hear a lot more than I talk. There's so much that we don't talk about, and then you suddenly realize it in a conversation like this. You say, "Oh, I didn't know she was intelligent."
That's the front door there.
Oh, okay. We're so mellow, so calm, so
Absolutely.
bonded. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I need to tell you that Desiree Lobo died not long after I recorded that interview with her and her husband Leslie. She was 48. I feel very privileged to have gained that insight into their lives together, along with those of Pat Rabe, who, as her dementia advances, still looks forward to the hug and kiss she gets every night from her husband and carer Ed. And the beautiful sibling relationship between 16-year-old Sophie Ryan and a 12-year-old brother Harry, who has cystic fibrosis, and who, if he can't be a footballer when he grows up, thinks he might be a physiotherapist, an occupation he's very familiar with as a patient. I'm Dr. Ranjana Srivastava. Thank you for coming with me on a home visit into the lives of these 6 people.